want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Log in, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Evening Infinite and happy Friday, happy July. We are so excited to be here today again. I am your host, Dr. Yvette Butler-Yaboa, and my co-host,
the Invisible Man.
And we are here with the voice of AAU. And we are so excited to see you again this Friday. And I want to thank all my viewers for always listening in. But we have a really great surprise for everyone today because, as you know, the month of June, we spent focus on a lot of the unfortunate, I say horrific tragedies that have happened within the Black community here in the United States. And remember, as I'll say, many of you did not know about a lot of the massacres and a lot of the things that occurred. And, our stories have not been told. And remember, I was telling you, we are going to have to start telling our own stories, our own history, because it's all about us. So we have a wonderful guest today who's going to talk all about writing our stories, because we are history. So before further ado, you all know I like to start our shows off with a video setting the stage. So we have a quick video we'd like to show to you. And first of all, I want to thank you all for coming on at this late hour, because we usually run at 7. I know a lot of you you changed the time only for today. So I want to thank you for coming on at a little hour later this time. And especially for my viewers that are internationally, I know it's been tough. And I got many texts. So I'm hoping that you're able to stay up with us. So without further ado, can we show the video, please, to set the stage? Well, you saw the quick video, and I'm really excited because today we're going to talk about writing your story. As you know, I think I'm decided to write my story. I'm still in the process of just really conceptualizing what my story will be, but we are excited to have Miss Dawn James. She is the founder, and she's a founder and the managing director of Publish and Promote Incorporated. And so I won't go into details, but I'm going to let her tell you about herself. And we are so excited. She just has a new book out. If you saw our advertisement, she has a new book that is actually going on to be number one. It's number two now, and it will be probably number one by next week as a bestseller. So I am excited. James, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Because you have a history that is so remarkable. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm just excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be on your show. I've been watching you for a while now. I have always been of the mindset you can put your mind to. And in 2010, I was called to start teaching specifically people how to market their book. And prior to 2010, I had worked over 12 years in the publishing industry in different roles. So this was my opportunity to give back and start my own company. So I have been teaching authors the business of self-publishing since 2010. We've met hundreds and hundreds of writers from all over the world. So I'm just thrilled. I love what I do. Every writer I call it doula because I help birth books.
And I'm not sure, are you hearing a delay? I think I have we have some technical difficulties. I'm not sure. Invisible Man, do you have any delays? Are you hearing us okay?
It's pretty good, the sound.
Invisible Man, are you
But I
there?
got two images.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
wonderful. Okay, because I'm having like little breaks on my side. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Miss James, could
It's
you tell us a
going
little bit
okay.
about yourself too, and tell us about yourself?
Well, prior to becoming an author in 2010, I worked in the corporate environment. As I said, I worked in publishing and a few other industries. I've always loved learning. And when I decided to take that first step and publish a book, I took a deep dive into all the steps required. There's like 48 major steps to write a book. And so I went through that process myself, and I put together a training program, and I started teaching a 4-hour workshop on how to publish, how to promote. My journey into writing happened because I had a significant life-changing event, and that event really woke me up to understanding we are so much more than a physical being. We are spiritual. We have an immense capacity to create. And so I stepped on the journey of publishing, and who knew? 8 books later, here I am, and I've probably worked with over 400 writers in the last 11 years.
Now that's impressive. And and first I want you to tell us about the book that you just wrote. And because I'm excited, I haven't got a copy yet, but I'm going to get a copy. Could you tell us about the book that you just wrote and how important that was in your journey to writing your story?
Well, yeah, it's my journey. The book is called Unveiled. Unveiled is how I woke up in 2003. I literally, my heart stopped beating and I crossed over. And when I had that experience, I never knew there was something more to me than being physical. And once you realize you have a spiritual essence, it's really hard to go back. And so Unveiled is my autobiography from birth to today on some trials and tribulations I had in childhood, physical phenomena, but then the spiritual phenomena came as an adult and how everything linked itself up in my realized there were stepping stones I was going through to get to today. So it's about waking up to your life. It's about the journey we all take in accepting ourselves. And in order to accept yourself, you have to know who you are. And so I'm really excited today to be talking about how the importance of sharing our stories and how our stories not only liberate us, they unite us in community. It's very important.
I want to jump in,
Is it
if
to
I may.
tell your story?
Can you tell us?
And are we really in, and how is it, how are we part of history?
You know, I think there's three stories. There's his story, there's her story, and there's the truth. And it's really important that we do not allow knowledge and wisdom to fade away, especially today. We have so much disconnection from each other through the generations now that we didn't experience even 50 years ago. So it's really important for us to capture these stories so they don't become, they don't fade away, and we lose that link to our culture. We lose that link to, where we've been and where we're going. The stories that we have can all impact each other. We just have to find the courage to start writing it down. There's so many wonderful autobiographies on the market today. I mean, Cicely Tyson, the late Cicely Tyson, and I loved her title, right? It was just beautiful, as I am, like here I am. So we have so many beautiful souls with the courage to share their story. We have to preserve our history by finding the courage to write these stories down so that future generations are going to have that bridge, that knowledge, that wisdom. They're going to understand the steps it took for them to be here because of the steps that their ancestors took. So it's very important that we continue that tradition of storytelling.
Ms. James,
Now, what
can you
is
hear
the
me?
difference between a story and one of the truth? Is there a difference at all?
I would say, sometimes we tell stories for making an impression. We tell stories to influence. We tell stories to entertain. The truth can be proven. Stories don't always have proof. And, my parents are from the Caribbean, and we grew up with Anansi stories. Now, there's a lot of stories about the Spider-Man, and the moral of the story is, and that's what I grew up with. The truth of the matter is there is no 8-foot Spider-Man running around. So, but stories do give us, the beautiful thing about stories is that it can be repeated again and again. And so, we have these, like the Three Little Pigs and Red Riding Hood and Nancy stories. So they carry forward through generations, and we remember stories. But the truth can be proven with facts and figures, and it's very important that we tell the truth as well, because it's true, these experiences that we shape the fabric of our culture by telling these true stories, what's happening today. So yeah, that's the difference in my opinion.
Can you hear
Well,
me,
thank you for that. And I
James?
know the Invisible Man, I think he had a question there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get
Yes.
on, but sometimes I wonder if my mic is open.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for coming on. Are you satisfied with the amount of stories that exist about us as a people here in the slavery diaspora?
I would say no, no, and no for many reasons. I think if I go back in history, there has been many barriers of entry in order to capture these stories, even in print. Many African cultures rely on oral tradition, but the barriers of entry, I'm talking specifically in North America, has caused a disruption in that flow of storytelling. There are many independent Black bookstores all over the US. There's a couple in Canada. I did a lot of traveling and speaking at a lot of these places, and I find that we have to support the community. We have to support the independent bookstores. We also need to get educated on overcoming barriers of entry. So there's a lot of work to be done. Education is the key, to answer your question. Understanding what it takes to produce literature, distribute literature, and understanding what it takes to connect to your ideal reader. Education is the key so that we can have more stories to enjoy. And now look, we have print, we have ebook, we have audiobooks. Oh my goodness, take your pick. There's no excuse, people. Get going. If you got a voice recorder on your phone, start talking.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure if you heard of the 400 year of, it's the 400 year of basically 400 years of greatness that was started here in the United States. And it is all about really telling our stories. And how would you even suggest someone go about telling their story? Where do you begin?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of the things that we teach in How to Write Your Life Story webinar. It really starts with your why. Step one, what is your why? Why are you choosing to tell your story? You need to really be clear on that, because that why is going to shape how you present those stories to the reader. So step one, figure out your why. Then I think the most important part of writing a book is to identify those stories that support your why and are going to have impact to the reader. We have so many stories in us, but here's an example. Some people choose to tell a little too much. I get asked this a lot. Dawn, what do I put in? How much is enough? I'm feeling vulnerable. So we don't need to know every day of your life. I don't need to know you got your tooth pulled when you were 16. But if you said I do, and you had an engagement ring, and oops, you lost that ring, and that was a sign you were never going to walk down the aisle, I want to know that story. So we need to take our time and select the stories that we want to share and make sure we stay true to our why. And then the third step is really putting it together so it's got flow and it's memorable. I always say every chapter is a book in itself. So you want to take your time, perfect your craft, so you have a beautiful legacy book.
That brings me
Now,
to this question, if I may.
yes.
Do you have to be a good or excellent writer like Shakespeare to be a great writer?
You know, I often say you can't compare, because depending on the times we're in, what makes a good writer. A couple of key things. A good writer always puts the reader first. You are writing for the reader. I see a lot of manuscripts, and few and far in between I will say, sorry, this is not a book, because they're only talking about things, it's for their benefit, not the reader. So to be a good writer, it's reader first. The second thing is, writing is a craft. You have to perfect your craft. A third thing in being a good writer is you have to have command of the written language. You know, you're moving the reader, whether it's laughing, crying, shock, whatever. You have to have command of the language. And so really perfecting your craft and making sure that you stay true to your why. And this is where you need a team to birth a book. No one can write a book and get it all done. You need that second, third, fourth pair of eyes on your work, giving you feedback, constructive feedback. It's so important. You see what you see, but you don't see the whole picture. You're too close to it. And that's why I often say the content is king, the book cover is queen. Invest in the content because it's the content that people will share and retell and retell and retell. It's not about how nice the cover looks.
Thank you.
Now, a question that I have, and I know for our audience out there, a lot of them really want to start writing their stories. And because when we talk about stories and how history has been written, and how we as Black folks and those who were forcibly removed from the continent and brought here, how there's stories that are written and they're untruth. So how do we rewrite or really tell the true stories of what happened to us from way back
It's
when?
again, yeah, no, I hear you. I think it's very important. One of the most memorable moments I had with our children, we have 3 children, well, they're adults now, but I will never forget the day the 5 of us sat in the living room and Alex Haley's Roots came on. Wow. I mean, all of America, didn't matter what shade you were, was glued to that TV for like a week. I think they had like a 5-day,
Oh,
5-part
yes.
series. Ah, that was life-changing, eye-opening. People felt they were just getting their first education lesson in Black history. Other people felt proud, there was pain, there was a whole bunch of emotions. But just look at what it took to get that story out. You know, we will never forget Alex Haley's work. And so
Yeah.
a lot of research went into that. We have to become our own historians, Dr. Butler. We have to become our own historians. We have to be curious, inquisitive, discerning. We need to do fact checking. This is what we need in order to get these truths to come to fruition and share it with the community and share it abroad. It really takes that investigative, discerning mind in order to get what you need. And so these are some of the skills we need to adopt very quickly across the generations so that we can begin to capture, you know, some people only focus on the elders and their stories, but you know, in this present day moment, the young generation have their stories to tell as well. So it's important we all give voice to our stories and be able to share them, and with courage. It takes courage. There are things that are painful, there are things that are shameful, there are things that we're afraid of, yet we have to face the fear and do it anyway. Because there's a saying, you know, I want to live a full life, I want to die empty. You don't want to go to your grave with all these untold stories, right? So it's up to us to find the courage and do the research and begin to piece together real history. So that's just my spiel on that.
Dr. Butler and Miss James, I actually had the opportunity to interview Alex Haley in 1983.
Wow.
It was at the inauguration of the C. Eric Lincoln Lecture Series. So I interviewed him and C. Eric Lincoln. And as Alex Haley was explaining how he began to write, it's so simple. He used to write, he was a merchant marine, and he used to write letters for the people on the boat. They would be out for a long time. But as he perfected his writing, which leads me to the question. The characters that were in his book were his family as he told his story. So my question is a character in real life just a character, just like in a fiction story? How do you know how to make the real character real and the fiction character? I don't know, maybe the question doesn't make Anyway,
It's
character. That's the question.
Yeah, so I mean, in fiction, you're creating a character.
Hmm.
You're literally, and there are character workbooks to get into not just the physicality of this fictional person, but the personality and all the different quirks that they have, and their thoughts, their beliefs, all of it. You're creating a character. When you're writing an autobiography or a biography, you're really talking about a real person. And so let's say if you're writing an autobiography, it's about you telling your story. A biography is you're telling someone else's story. You really have to respectfully get to know that person, the ins and outs, their character, their qualities, their journey, so that you can do justice and have their voice be authentic in that piece of work. So fictional character we create, but in reality, when you're writing about yourself, you have to be honest with yourself and say, these are the characteristics I want to share, and this is how it fits into my journey. And these are the things I need people to know about how I went from A to B to C. So you do have to sit with yourself and understand how much of yourself are you sharing, and how does it support the story that you're about to tell. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Well, let me do a quick follow up. One of the most famous books, To Kill a Mockingbird, the lady who wrote it, Harper Lee, they discovered a book after she had passed away. You heard about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was not received. Can you address that?
When you said, sorry, it was not received?
Not well. They said that, see, her first writing was pretty much a fictional account of something that she knew about. And the character development, Atticus and so forth, the people in the first story, people could really identify with, but they evolved because she wrote the second book later in life, and they were very unhappy with the characters. So, does or can a character change?
Well, it's no different than people change over time. I mean, things you were interested in at 19, you're not interested in at 49. So you're going to have some
Yes.
evolution going on there. Put it this way, Mr. Invisible Man, how often, how many times have you gone to watch a movie? Let's use, I don't know, Star Wars.
Okay, I like Star
One,
Wars.
2, 3, 4. By the time you get to part 4, part 5, or Rocky, it's like, wow, I don't know if I really am into this anymore. Things have changed too much. So, you know, characters can evolve over time. If you're doing a series of books, you do have to remember reader first and keep that in mind when you're evolving your characters, even in your book. You have to keep that in mind because the reader is always looking for some common thread that connects book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if that's being really altered significantly, I can see why maybe it wasn't well received.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I want I have to interject here. We're talking about these books that are well known, this that. Now let's talk James Baldwin's, Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni. Um, we have to remember we have a very international audience, and To Kill a Mockingbird is not it's not my favorite book,
What?
so I have to say that. And
Okay, that's all right. Just put me
and
down. That's okay.
so we need and the majority of people internationally probably have no idea what To Kill a Mockingbird is, but they might have heard of James Baldwin. They definitely heard of Maya Angelou, for her
Okay,
poetry and some of the things
I
that
apologize.
she written. So I want to, and I say this with all earnesty and without no disrespect to any of my audience. We as African Americans have sat here on this call and quoted. Miss James is not, but My Invisible Man. You've quoted every white author you think about except Alex Haley. So
Shakespeare.
I want to kind of reel this back in because we as Africans living in America, we need to start thinking about our stories and not their stories and really writing our stories based
Okay,
on
okay.
our
Quit picking
ancestral
on me.
being.
Quit
So
picking on me. Let's go to a
I,
raisin in the
I just had to
sun.
put that out there because,
Let's go to a
yes,
raisin in the
definitely.
sun.
So,
Lorraine Hansberry.
so yes, yes. So I love when you say, when you repeat some of those, because that is really telling for me, uh, and hopefully, and for our audience. So,
Exactly. Like
what,
Dr. Butler,
Miss James,
we
can
just
you
have
tell us? Yes.
we have a current book, the Book of
Okay.
Negroes. That's a very current book, right?
I haven't
Yes.
heard of it.
Yes.
Who's the author?
Oh,
Mr. Lawrence, and that went
yes.
Lawrence Hill, whew, worldwide,
I'm gonna have
Yes.
to
right?
check it out.
And it's a movie.
Yes.
It's a movie now. It's the Book of Negroes is also a movie. So please, if you have
Oh,
time, if any of the audience out there, if you haven't seen it, it's called the Book of Negroes, and it is an amazing story
Yeah.
that is based on facts. So, Amanda, if you haven't
Yes.
seen the Book of Negroes, please do read the book and see the movie. I mean, it's a series. I have watched it, and I'm it just I mean, it that's what really started making me think of
okay.
how
Dr. Butler
we have
and
been
Miss James.
miseducated.
Wait a minute, you're gonna pick on me. Let's go to a
Yes.
real example now. This lady who I'm in Maryland and Miss Lax, Henrietta Lax, her story, that's a real story. That was a book,
Huge.
right?
Yes.
And then it
Oh,
became
yes,
a movie.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. How can
Yeah.
you I read the book and I saw the movie. Uh the movie didn't quite make it as much as because it wasn't a storybook. It's a factual book. So telling the story in the book and then seeing it brought to the screen, something got lost. I don't know what. That's all I can say. Did either of you read the book?
Oh, yeah,
No,
my
no, I
father
saw the
introduced me
movie.
to that story.
Okay. So did you see the movie as well, Miss James?
No, no, but my father introduced me to that book, and that story. It was quite something to read. But here's an example. Here's an example. I often say there's surface history. Surface history is what everybody has in a
Yes.
textbook. And then there's hidden history, still
Yes.
to be uncovered, revealed. A lot of things that were hidden is being revealed today. I can go into a lot of topics, but I want to stay true to this show. A lot of things that were hidden are being revealed. I was
Yes.
astounded today. I was listening to a young lady in the US talk about certain lakes all over the US, especially in the South, where they have a lake, but in fact, that lake used to be a Black community back in 1800s, and a lot of these towns were eradicated, and here we
Sure.
have all these lakes. And she actually listed
Yeah.
over 100 lakes all over the US that
Good.
used to have predominantly Black communities. And I thought, really, even Central Park, there's so much history
Yes.
that's now coming to
Yes.
light, and this is over 150 years old. So just imagine, if we don't have a curious, investigative, discerning mind, that will remain hidden. So it's time to pay attention and
So I want to ask this question.
cultivating that story. Bring it back. We have to bring it back.
I want to ask this question. So don't either of you pick on me. Can we get young people to buy into telling our stories?
Okay, this is what I'm gonna say, because I've got kids in their 30s now. So
They're not kids, then they're young adults.
I know I call them kids. They're always my kids.
Yeah, they're always
There's
gonna
a
be your
couple,
babies. So,
yeah, there's a couple of factors here that we need to pay attention to that has really changed the narrative around family communication. Up until say 1981, we used to sit together, eat together, meals together. Of a lot of families, Sunday dinner was like the highlight of the week.
Yes, ma'am.
And we talked, we listened. Around the early 80s, this thing called a computer showed up, and everybody got a computer in their house. And in less than 25 years, man, that computer is in your pocket. It's in, you're carrying your computer now. As a matter of fact, instead of having a computer, this device is now a phone, a recorder, a video, a calendar, a clock.
A whole
I'll
business
go on and
center.
on. Some people have 50, 70, 100 apps on their phone. It's their personal trainer.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's happened is
She's right.
we have a lot of breaks in communication, and because of the breaks in communication, that transfer of knowledge and wisdom is not moving as smooth as it used to between generations. You also have a very mobile society. So how many households have 3 generations?
In them, very few.
So how does those stories get told if there's no one listening because they're busy doing this?
You mean on their phones?
Exactly. So I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying the majority of people are preoccupied. I mean, they have a name for it now. It's called, what is it called now? I think it's called PAD. It's like passive attention deficit disorder. I don't know. They come up with all these beautiful names. It means you're not listening.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and we have forgotten about the extended families that we used to have. And we have gotten so accustomed to not living together as big, large families. And so we don't have our mother and grandpa and aunts to be around us to really tell us some of the history that existed. How do we get back to that? And one of the questions I willing to ask is, it was alluded to before as far as autobiography versus a biography. Who is who is it really good to tell your story? Should it be someone else, or should it be you personally really telling your story? Who should tell your story?
I mean, ideally, you should tell your own story, because when someone else tells your story, they're piecing together events, they're piecing together and they're recollecting, and yeah, they can reach out to other folks and family members, but it's still a bit of a puzzle and some pieces are missing. What I find, and having just gone through this with my own autobiography unveiled during our lockdown here.
No, say it right, pandemic. Not lockdown, pandemic.
There's so many definitions, I'm calling it lockdown.
Lockdown. No, you like people in prison. No prison. Pandemic.
But what I found was, when you write your story, you're going to have those triggers, those events, those aha moments. You're going to explain to us what got you to go from here to here. You were there. You knew what shifted. If I'm trying to say, oh yeah, she used to be, she was in dental school and then she met a guy and I remember she got married, but then she decided to become a teacher. But you don't know what caused those changes. I call them gates or triggers. And so if you don't have that information, you're leaving some gaps. The reader has to kind of fill in the gaps, and you never want to let the reader start questioning what you're writing. So I find it is richer when you are able to tell your own story. And it's not a skill everyone has. I myself, even though I'm in publishing over 20 years, I retained a writing coach to tell into that in a moment why. But even though I've written, 7 books, this particular autobiography, which is a one in a lifetime experience, I wanted that writing coach to work with me. So I think it's richer when you tell it yourself, because there's things that no one else knows about you that only you know. And those are some of the juicy details we like to read about.
And along those lines, do you have a formula for telling your story?
Oh, I love that question. There are several ways to write your life story. And in our webinar, How to Write Your Life Story, we actually break down 3 ways to write your life story. They're 3 very distinct styles. And we pick those 3 styles because people can quickly grasp the concept and they can get working right away. We also take them through 3 real life examples of people who used each of those styles. And we get them writing. In the webinar, you're actually going to do a writing prompt so that you can start identifying those stories within that 60-minute webinar. So there are many ways to get there. Some people think chronological is the way to go. It's not always the case. Sometimes you have to write in a bit of a flashback. I'm here in 2021, but then I'm back in high school because this thing impacted me today. So sometimes you got to go back and forth. Other times you have to go with the themes in your life. What were the major themes? And so we go through these 3 major styles and we break it down and give them examples so that by the time you get through that 1-hour webinar, you would have already written. We're giving you prompts to start picking out those stories that you want to share in your own book. So that's really important. And you can learn more on writeyourstory.ca. That's where the webinar is. Sign up, take it. The beautiful thing about learning styles is you're also going to get a chance to talk with myself or my writing coach in a one-on-one call when you take our webinar at writeyourstory.ca. So enjoy the journey of learning because there's different ways to deliver your story, and we at least give you 3 ways that's very easy to follow and you can get started right away.
Now, I want to say that's how we actually met.
Well, we're going to do the commercial break.
Go ahead.
Well, let's do the commercial break.
Go ahead. When we come back. Thank you.
Yes, I want them to see the commercial break where they can see again the website and how to write the story. So we'll go to a commercial break real quick, and then when we come back, I want you to give us some real tips on how to really start.
Okay.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Welcome back. Welcome back. And for those of you who have just recently joined us and came on, we're talking today about how to write your story or writing your own story and how that's going to impact his story and move us forward with Don James. And once again, thank you. So, Miss James, could let's go right into it and give us more information on the steps. Because I just had a text while we're in commercial break, and someone's like, "Where's my link?" So she got the link, and she's like, "Please tell her again. How can we start, and where do we begin?" And
again, I'm gonna say, and
hold on.
okay,
Let's do a commercial because it was the webinar that I attended that got you here today, and I'm so grateful because I've been writing my whole life, but I learned so much from you and your writing coach, who is another Canadian, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for coming on the show. And please carry on.
No, thank you so much. These are we think there's nothing random in the world. You know, I met the invisible man through our webinar, and here I am talking to you, Yvette. The three major steps, again, is you have to know your why. Why are you choosing to tell the story? And then you have to pick those stories. It's called story identification. You have to really go back in time. And one of the things that I did is I literally took a sheet of paper, landscape this way, and I drew a line across the middle, and I listed some positive events in my life, and I listed some events below the line that were not positive. And I sat with those events. I sat with them and I said to myself, how did they change me? How did they shape me? How did they influence who I am today? Each of those events. And then I took another step back and I said, is there something common about some of these events? Do they have something in common? And I looked at it. Or maybe it was the person in my life. Sometimes we meet a person and 5 years later we meet a similar person, same, repeat. It's like the universe says, hey, you're not listening, so I'm going to give you another opportunity. So listen up, here it comes again. So we have to, at our timeline, literally take a sheet of paper, draw a line across the middle, and the memorable, significant events, positive or negative, right? And sit with each event and start to think, what is the story I can share around this? How did this come about? What happened after it came about? How did I change? What did I learn? What did I gain? What did I lose? You have to sit with your story and you have to go through this process. It is fascinating to do it. There's so much clarity you'll get, but you have to take the time. I hope that answers that question. Because it's so important we understand, not just, oh yeah, I have a story, but how did it change me? How did it mold me? And what?
Go ahead.
now, question I have now: how long is it to write a story? And because I know some people years and years,
how hard is it?
Some people can get it done. How long and how hard is it? How long does it take?
That is a loaded. It's a loaded question because I'm gonna say it's a loaded question because it takes courage to be that vulnerable to share your story. right? There are things that people hold back sharing for various reasons, and then there are things that people feel we tend to downplay our story. Oh, it's not important. Who am I? Who's going to listen to me? You know, we go through this negative self-talk, and we have to find a way to get courage and value ourselves. When I say it depends, it really depends on if you're ready. I had an experience in 2003. It took me 7 years to get the courage to start writing about the topic. And it would take me a total of 17 years to actually sit down and write my autobiography. Now, once I sat down and I made a personal commitment, which is another big word, you have to commit to yourself. It took me less than 16 weeks to write my autobiography, but it's because I made a commitment and I had a firm date. I wanted it done, and I made sure and I kept my promise to myself to get it done. So it really depends if you're ready, you've got the courage, there's no negative self-talk. We have an annual retreat in Costa Rica every winter, and we have writers come down and they finish writing their book in 7 days because they are committed to writing their book. 7 days. Get it done.
That's
if you
amazing.
have that kind of drive, message me, because you get it done in 7 days. Trust me.
I wanna make a comment and ask a question, if I can.
Yes.
Y'all got on my case about European writers. Now, here's the question.
That was only me. That was me.
That was both of y'all. Here's the question. Can you name for me who was the most prolific of us writers from the 50s, 60s, who sold the most? And I bet you'll never guess who. And when I tell you, you're going to be like, you won't believe it. It's two particular writers that really everybody read, and I'll even give you a hint. The publishing house was the same house, Holloway House. Ring a bell? Give you 10 seconds on the clock. 5.
Oh,
4.
I mean, you're giving.
No, I know you're not.
You know, I don't do good with quizzes.
I wasn't born then. That's my excuse. I wasn't born then.
But it's history.
I definitely wasn't born then.
Oh my goodness.
Our stories aren't told, so
Robert Beck, his name, his writing,
I know. So on,
is Iceberg Slim, and the second one is Donald Goins. They were the most prolific of us, and they sold the most. So you've heard of them, I hope.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I get around. I know different. I was gonna mention Khalil Gibran. You know, y'all just put me in a box. I'm through. I'm through talking. No more.
I'm glad you mentioned some of our.
We're not trying to scare you. I hope you.
Go ahead. No, I'm not going to be quiet.
If you guys can hear me, okay?
Sorry, I missed.
I was frozen on my side, so I wasn't sure.
No, can you hear me now? I said, yes. A little bird told me that you, Dr. Butler, are going to write a book. Is this true?
Well, I'm going to get Don James' help, but I'm going to get it done eventually. So I just have to get it. I'm going to get it done. I don't know if it's going to be a seller, but I just need to tell you.
It'll be great. You're going to have the courage. She's going to help you along with her writing coach, and we'll have something to read that we can really enjoy. I'm looking forward to it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it all comes to that commitment, and you pick a birthday and you say, this is when I'm birthing this book, and you just walk towards that birthday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm definitely gonna be one of your clients, because I know I've been wanting to do this, and I keep pushing it around, and I've decided I'm gonna do it. Even got the title, but I haven't sat down and really start drafting it out because there's so much. It's just so convoluted, and I didn't have the best upbringing, but it was a happy upbringing, but it wasn't the best. A lot of challenges to get me here to where I am today, and I think I have a lot more challenges to go. So, but I don't want to talk about my story and writing it. I want you to give us more, give some of our audience more advice on where to go, how can they reach you, what are what are some tips?
Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to share. Writing a book is 20% of the work. The other 80% is marketing your book.
Yes.
I can't talk about one without talking about the other. So it's important, even before you publish your book, to have a clear vision of how you plan to reach your best audience, because your book isn't for everybody. That's number one. You have to reach your best audience. So that's really important to get crystal clear on that, because if you're not clear on that, you're going to miss the mark. The other thing I tell authors, this is no time to be shy. You need to show up and speak up, be visible and be vocal in the community, at events, speaking, any opportunity to share your voice, share your work, you have to do it. So it's very important. For instance, when I made up my mind to publish my first book, a year before I printed those books, I had a 12-month tour planned, city by city by city, Canada and the States. I knew where I was going to be every month, and I executed that plan. So it's important to start planning even before you print your book. You can reach me on my website, publishandpromote.ca. I'm Canadian. Publishandpromote.ca. Everything is there, from our book production services. We do everything from concept. We work with you on your outline, editing, design, distribution, printing. And then on the promotion side, you'll see another menu where we do marketing plans with you, your profile, your brand identity, get you ready for the media, whatever it takes to get you out there, and how to connect to your best audience. So we do publishing and we do promotion, which is why we're called Publish and Promote. So that's just a little bit about that. If you are really ready to learn how to write your story, learn those 3 basic techniques, visit writeyourstory.ca, take our 1-hour webinar, and it includes a 30-minute call with me to talk about your project. So take advantage of that at writeyourstory.ca. And thanks so much again. I really appreciate your support. Yvette, I have to tell you a story. What really spurred me to start my company, when my dad was in his 70s, he wasn't well. And I realized, my gosh, how, and I was about to become a grandparent. So I was like, how do I capture his stories? We were going to get him in a recording studio because he wasn't going to write it. So we thought, let's get him to record it. And it's because of this growing need for me to capture his story in some form or fashion, I thought about all the other grandparents out there. What can we do? And, that's part of why I started this company, is we need to capture these stories before they fade away, they disappear. They say within 3 generations, your name is forgotten. Think about that.
Yep.
Within
terrible.
3 generations,
Wow.
your name is forgotten. And my question to the listeners tonight, how do you want to be remembered?
I like that.
How do you want to be
a lot.
remembered? Very important. Yeah.
And it was interesting. That's one of the things that the reason why I really started thinking about writing my story. I feel like I've done so much in my life, and I said, what do I have to show when I leave this land behind, and I go to the more spiritual realm? How will people remember me? And so because and it's interesting. I think about that more and more now, not even by writing the story, but how will people remember me, and what kind of legacy do I want to leave? And so it's
Exactly.
interesting. And so I tell the people out there, because one thing I want to say, because my grandfather, he had 18 children. And it was interesting. He was born in 1888, I believe it is. So you can see and so he had three different families, by three different women. And we would always tell the stories. Every family reunion would get together, but everyone forgot to write them. We did a video at one of our reunions, and people forgot to write the stories. And so now the stories have been gotten so convoluted, and they're some of them are stories and just, elaborated stories, but stories. And so we really, and I felt we missed an opportunity of a great man, and hearing and really getting his story written, because our family was part of the first generation to move. He was one of those ones who came across a covered wagon and went to the West Coast in California and lived in Allensworth, California, one of the first, the only black, black led, black owned, black established townships in California,
That's right.
which they put arsenic in the water to literally get them off the land. So it was interesting. So instead of, we have these massacres where they're shooting and killing us, but they put arsenic in the water to kill off the livestock and the plants first. And then, of course, how can you live without, any vegetation? So there you had to, leave. And then they finally just cut the water supply off. So all those stories are just, and that's why I started thinking,
Yes,
what do I want people to remember me as? And what do I want my story to
exactly.
be? So,
Yes.
but I thank you so much. And how can we reach you again? And oh, Don, this has been wonderful. I'm so excited because like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna reach out to you. How can people reach you?
Absolutely.
Your website, is there an email or anything that people can reach
Yeah,
you at?
absolutely. The best way to reach me is publishandpromote.ca. That is the central hub. Whether you're needing guidance on book publishing or book marketing, you can reach out to us. We have book translations. We've been doing book translations now for 6 years. I love it. I work with writers all over the world. And if you just need that accountability every month, someone to check in on you, keep you honest to get it done, we do have monthly accountability calls. We do as well. In terms of events, I just want to share quickly two things, and one is totally related to this topic tonight. This fall, we're going to be launching a program for grandparents. And if anyone's listening tonight, if you're a grandparent, we have a project this September called Letters to the Grandchildren. And there's information on my website. We're looking for grandparents all over the world to write a letter to a grandchild, and these letters will be put into a book. This is a book to preserve your story, your history, your legacy for grandchildren and future generations. The proceeds of the book sales will go to an organization called World of Children. So we're doing a 360 give all around. You give your story, the grandchildren receive your story, and we're going to support an organization that is working for children's rights. So check out the website, publishandpromote.ca. Everything we do is there, all the services, and you can book a free call. Everything is on that site. I really appreciate the support. It's so important for us to, if I can close with a quote, and this really touched my heart, and it really tells the importance of why we need to share a story. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Don, before you close, is there a cost also? That was a question that just came on my cell phone. Is there a cost for your service?
The initial call, the 30-minute call, you can book a call on our website. That initial 30-minute call is complimentary. The services, whether it's publishing or promotion, you'll see that on the website. We have two main columns there, and those services are fee-based, but the initial call is always complimentary.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry for interrupting you, but that was someone just texted me that, and I said, "Oh, let me ask real quick." So please give us your closing thoughts. And first, before you have closing, I want to thank you
Oh,
again
Yeah.
so
I
much.
got
So
one comment.
please,
I got a comment.
Yes?
yes.
Yeah, I got 2 more books to recommend since you said I was being too white. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington and Too Light, Too Dark, the story of Eli Green. They are both great reads. Eli Green was the guy who infiltrated the defense plant. Eleanor Roosevelt got him a job pushing a broom. And so that's how we ended up working in the aircraft plant in California, but he came from Sewanee, Tennessee. So I do read black literature.
Mr. Invisible Man, I have a book for you. I have a
Okay.
book for you. Okay. This book is by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing,
I'm familiar with her. Go
published in
ahead.
1992. It's called The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors.
It's in my library.
And
Oh,
it's as
yes.
relevant, and I have to say, it's as relevant today as it was in the 90s.
Thank you. I will reread it.
Okay. I do want to, this really touched my heart when I read this, and I wanted to share this quote. It's by Carter G. Woodson.
Uh-oh. He's a DC boy, you know.
Oh, what happened?
He's about to
Okay, go
close
ahead.
us out.
Sorry about that.
Okay, just quickly, Carter G. Woodson, and I'm quote, "Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from teaching of our biography and our history. So you must begin to tell your story, because your stories are a bridge to the future, and your stories are a link to our cultural fabric. Because if we don't know those accomplishments, guess what? The future generations will not be inspired. So start writing your story, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I see our producer. We want to thank Afrique Today. Ms. James, thank you. Thank you. Afrique Today, we want to thank you so much for allowing us this time again tonight. And I am excited. I hope that everyone out there who wants to write their stories have gotten inspired. Please contact Ms. James. And remember, she can, the first consultation is free, just getting you started. But I believe that we need to really start writing our stories, and not just our stories. That is our history. And if we don't do it now, and if you don't do it